Okay. Now, right now, let me move this thing out of the way. I don't want to knock this hard drive off. You don't need to worry about that offset stuff when you're burning chips. If you have your burn 2 plugged directly into MPTune, because if you
Okay.
look on the lower left of the screen, it says burn 1 2 found on COM 4,
Yeah.
and there's my burn 2 in my hand.
Okay.
So I am going to open calibration, click on calibration, and then let's say you went to your email. All right.
Hmm.
Actually, let me stop my screen share. I'm gonna share just the whole thing. Share screen. Okay. So I'm gonna go to the email that I sent you,
Yep.
and I'm gonna download the ASM file and the TPL. So those
Okay.
are the two things you need. Then I'm going to go back to MPTune, and I'm going to hit calibration, open, and it'll want to open the .tpl file. That's what it's looking for.
Okay.
So open. So then make that big. Move this little zoom window thing out of the way because it's in the way right now for me. Um,
Oh yeah.
so it's already set up for 3-bar map, 42-pound injectors.
Okay.
Really, all you need to do, I'm gonna grab a chip out of my bag and put it in the burn 2 here. So notch towards handle, blah, blah, blah. Like so. And because MPTune knows the Motes burn 2 and the ostrich, if you bought a Motes ostrich,
Yeah.
it's an EEPROM emulator.
Hmm.
It knows that hardware and it automatically selects it. So
Okay.
I loaded up the tune. I haven't changed anything, and I'm going to hit flash up here.
Hmm.
If you can see that button,
Yeah.
click on that. It's going to look for the open a bin file. No, wait, I did it wrong. Sorry. I got to compile this first. My bad. So yeah, you open up your TPL, you make all your changes you want to make. Um, let's say you had like at 2700 and 2800-ish RPMs, you were a little lean. You would
Hmm.
click on that, you would bump that up a couple clicks, to add
Yeah.
more fuel at that RPM,
Hmm.
but we're not really going to do that. Well, it doesn't matter. We'll just say that we did. And then you're going to hit calibration, save as, and I like to um, save them as different revisions.
Yeah.
So like this is your base file and then rev 2 at the end.
Okay.
And then your next one, you always save as a new file so you don't overwrite the previous one just in case the previous one is
Yeah.
better and you want to go back.
Yeah.
So then save, file saved, and then compile. Okay. And now it wants that .asm assembly file. So we choose the one in the grant folder, T spec v3 EMR fix, and you hit OK, hit open. And then it's going to ask me, I don't know if you could see that window that popped up.
Yeah, I think so.
Do you want to
Okay.
allow this app from an unknown publisher to make changes to your device? Yes. And then it quickly pops up a window and it goes away real fast and it says it's done. So
Okay.
uh, then you hit flash with your burn 2 connected. And
Hmm.
now in the grant folder, there's a bin file.
Okay.
And it is tspec blah, 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 rev 2. So you click that and you hit open. And at the bottom, it says writing and now reading. Oops.
Okay.
And then it says chip burn successfully.
Okay, gotcha. Um,
So,
yeah. Yeah, so I got that when I didn't do the compile thing. I wasn't aware of that. But I got that, like completed kind of
yep,
message. I guess it
yep.
just didn't have all the files it needed or something.
Perhaps not. And since this is, well, here, um, let me open up the previous version. I don't think that a little bit extra fuel that I stuffed in there would matter, but start with this. Okay. You can get confused too, because you could just keep opening calibration files and it'll
Hmm.
have different tabs at the top.
Yeah.
Now, well, this is nice. Okay, I'm going to click on the original one. It's highlighted there. And then when you go over to here, comp cals,
Hmm.
you can compare it to the one I just made.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Oh, wait, somebody's texting me. One sec. So I have that checked. So then we're in the original one. I go to fuel, I go to modifiers, and I go to pumping efficiency. And you can see that green line in the background.
Yeah, yeah.
That is the one with a little more fuel in that spot.
Gotcha.
So now I'm gonna go and close this rev 2 because it doesn't matter. Calibration, close. So now we only have the original one open.
Hmm.
All right, so then I'm gonna hit compile. It wants that EMR fix ASM file. Hit open. Hit yes. It does its stuff. And then hit flash. And now you got two bins in there, the one I made before with more fuel and the one that I just made. So I'm going to choose the one I just made. And in the lower here, it's reading to check. And then it's all set. So now that I made that bin file, I'm just going to email that to you. I'll email you all those ones that are already compiled, just in case you're running into any issue.
Yeah.
Now, let me just run you through all of the steps. So let's say for your car in particular, I'm going to open, well, I'm going to close that previous one we were working on. Okay, open. I probably have these downloaded. I'm not exactly sure. Let's see. I'm going to
Okay.
open this up. So when you're starting from bone stock, you open up a stock cal that's closest to your car, like MTX is manual transmission,
Yeah.
2.5 is obviously 2.5.
Mhm.
And that T SBEC, that SBEC should match 90 or 91 computers. You just got to pick what's closest to your car. This A225, that's just a Chrysler internal calibration number from
Oh,
back in the day. It doesn't mean horsepower or any crazy things like that. All right,
okay.
so first thing you do is calibration, save as, stock cal run through. All right, this is the stock file. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit calibration save as, and then I'm going to make it. Let's just say for kicks we were going to make it a 3-bar map sensor, and let's say it's got a big ported head and a cam, and we have 72-pound injectors. So I'd write 72-pound in there, and then hit save. It just doesn't change the file. This is just what we're calling it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so then I hit scaling, injectors, size, 72. Tables have been scaled to new injector value of 72. Hit OK. Scaling, map, pressure, 3-bar. Then I just start going down through these tables and making the changes that I want to make. Let's see. AC control, don't care. Barrel read, don't care. Boost, target lookup, do care. So say this is a pretty high powered car, and
Yeah.
say you're running computer controlled boost, which you can do. You generally have to tune one table, but I'll show you which one that is. We want like 20 pounds. Now, all these tables right here, the computer will choose the lowest of all of them.
Okay.
So if I set them all to 30, but I set one to 15, you're going to get 15 pounds of boost.
And that's maximum?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it may overshoot, it may undershoot. There's a little bit of, that
Yeah.
you may not get that boost. That is with no boost leaks. That's with your wastegate working properly. That's with the wastegate solenoid hooked up to the wastegate and the manifold, correctly, or at least according to the diagram underneath the hood, because that stuff's on there.
Okay.
Things that will change how much boost you'll get, or at least how fast it comes in, is if you have the little restrictor. There's like a little bleed restrictor thing, and that determines, that they show restrictor in the factory diagram underneath the hood.
Yeah.
A lot of people use welding tips because they're,
Oh, okay.
you can look at them and see what size they are because they're written
Yeah.
on there. They'll just stuff them in line in the hose and the correct orientation. Anyway, but yeah, this would be the max boost. So allowed boost from RPM. Chrysler set this table with like a hump in it. They didn't want a ton of boost down in the low RPMs because they were afraid of people breaking stuff.
Yeah.
So they like limited it to 7 pounds until you got to 3,400 RPMs. And then they would ramp it up to like 11 for a while and then bring it back down again. Guess
Yeah.
what I do with this? I set it to 20.
Oh,
I said, let's see. Or at least set it higher than my minimum. Yeah, I want the most amount of boost possible at the lowest RPM. And I don't know what transmission's in that car. Do you remember?
it's an A568.
No, you got a 568. You're not going to break the gearbox at 20 pounds.
Right.
I broke a 523 with 20 pounds rolling into it with a 2.5 and a stock turbo because it would come on like nitrous. It came on so hard.
Really?
Yep. So allowed boost from temp. This one, you leave it like this. You don't want scream and boost when the engine's cold.
Yeah.
So like 30 degrees here,
Yeah.
that's is this thing scaled correctly? Yeah, negative 200 to 260 is the scale. At 30 degrees, they're limiting it to 5 pounds, and you don't get your maximum boost until the engine's at least at 100 degrees on the x-axis there. So I just take this thing and I run it up to 20, but I leave it so you can't have 1,000,000 pounds of boost when the engine's really cold.
Gotcha.
Okay. Allowed boost from time. So in the factory calibration, because this was a non-intercooled calibration, they limited how long you could have your 11 pounds of boost here to what was it? Gotta move my window. Yeah, I don't know if this scale is correct because it says you only get 11 pounds of boost for like 0.158 seconds. I think it was a few more seconds than that. And then it would drop back down to like 8 pounds. But put that thing up to 20 where it belongs. I don't suggest running 20 pounds of boost all the time on pump gas.
Yeah.
I generally run 15. 15 is pretty safe. I've ran as much as 23 on pump gas, but at that point I only have like maybe 10 or 12 degrees of timing and ignition advance in it, just to keep it from blowing up or from knocking. All right, allowed boost for automatics. We don't have to worry about that. So you put that table to 20. They were trying when they would put one of these motors in front of the automatic transmissions. They didn't have the clutch. They didn't have the clutch packs tight enough. They didn't have the shift firm enough to handle a ton of power.
Okay.
All right, allowed boost, knock. Oh, this is different. See, I don't have any spec 90 or 91 cars. from RPM while knocking. Well, if it's knocking, yeah, I'm gonna bring it back down. If you're not knocking, you're fine. If you are knocking, it's gonna drop the boost to 11 pounds. That's not a bad idea.
So in that sense, when it says knock, does it
Yep.
mean like rod knock, or is that like
No.
no?
There's a knock sensor on the intake manifold.
Yeah.
We'll get to that table. I'll show you. But there's a knock sensor on the intake manifold, and it will pick up knock. It will pick up abnormal, louder engine noise than proper operation
Okay.
before you can hear it.
Okay.
The only way you would hear it is if you're like, say you're on an on-ramp and you're next to like a, a retaining wall, like a concrete
Yeah.
wall, you might hear it at the same time as the knock sensor, or by a
Okay.
guardrail or something like that.
Yeah.
But if you hear like loud knock when you're rolling into the boost, that means the computer's already pulled a bunch of timing out of it, and it's like, danger zone.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna leave this here. I don't think I needed this low because this is assuming no intercooler.
Uh,
So I'll just set it at 10 all the whole way across the board.
okay. So question.
Huh.
So when I originally got the car,
Yeah.
um, Sean told me, he set it so it was like 12 pounds max
Yep.
boost. And
Yep.
I don't know if he set that by the tune or by the manual boost controller.
Is
Um,
there a manual boost controller on it?
yeah, there is.
Then that's what it's set to.
Okay. So if I have the boost set on the manual boost controller, so I'm just confused, like if I set, say, the maximum boost on the tune to 15 pounds, am I then able to go over that with the manual boost controller?
Yes, this is assuming, and I'm just showing you this for reference if you
Yeah.
want to do it later.
Mhm.
Um, if you're fine with 12 pounds on a manual boost controller,
Yeah,
just
I'm really
stick with
not.
that.
I'd
It
like more than that.
Well, right, you just turn the screw in until it pops. But
Yeah.
um, the nice thing about this, you would want to hook it up. You would want to hook it up based on the underhood diagram as close as you can. Um, but it's a bigger turbo on the car, so there's a table you'll have to tune. Um,
All right.
we'll just run through the basics real quick, and then if you
All right.
want to talk about that later, then I'll show you how to do that. But for now, manual
All right.
boost controller, and just like a little bit at a time, turn it
Yeah.
up. 15 pounds is great for high. You got to run good gas. You got to run 93.
Yeah. Yeah. I do run 93.
Yeah, right. Which sucks right now, but it
Yeah.
is what it is.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So if you just turn the screw in, whichever way it tells you, I don't know what boost controller he had on there, but generally you turn it in, it decreases the spring pressure on the ball, and you get
Yeah.
more boost.
Yeah. He had
So,
a cheap one on there, I think was giving me issues, so I got a Turbo Smart one.
oh, okay, yeah, and it'll tell you which way to turn it up.
Yeah.
It's manual though.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, Turbo Smart makes good stuff.
Yeah. It's
Um,
great actually.
yeah, and the thing with the manual boost controller is you just ease into the throttle and you hear it like
Yep.
and it's trying to give you all of it. The nice thing about the factory control is you can set for when you want it. Like you could have one of the inputs like a switch
Hmm.
for like a low boost button in the dash somewhere. Some I think in some of these setup tables later on, you can define like the cruise control buttons or something like that to be boost control buttons.
Wow.
Um, yeah, or you just take, you take the wire. If you're not running cruise control, then you find the wire at the computer and either ground it or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you can have that to a little toggle high and low boost. And the nice thing about this next table, allowed boost, part throttle. So this is TPS volts from 0 to 5 volts. And you can say at half throttle, let's say half throttle is around 2 volts here. You want, 7 pounds at full throttle, you want 20, right?
Mm.
So then, and you can add, with this program, you can click on these and insert a point. And let's say 0.2, it added another point in here. So you can have it like up to, let's say this is 3/4 throttle right here. You only
Yeah.
have 9 pounds, but then that last little bit goes from 9 to 20. So you can have it be really docile around town and
Mm.
not scream in the turbo and making all, drawing all kinds of attention to yourself. But
Yeah.
then when you get into it, it's all in, so but that's what you can do if you hook the solenoid back up in the proper orientation, and you go through all these tables, and then you tune. There's another table coming up that I'll show you that you tune, that you have to dial in. It's a pulse width
Yeah.
versus boost table. So there's like in this factory boost control stuff, there's code built in that if you overshoot it,
Mm.
it'll 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 creep it back to where it wants to be, and it'll learn that. So as long as you don't disconnect the battery, the next time you go out, it'll overshoot it less and less and less
Wow.
until you just hammer it and it ramps right up to where it wants to be. But that's only if you tune this one table that's boost versus duty cycle of the solenoid.
Okay.
And but you just disable all those adaptive controls, and then you set that duty cycle to like a number, and you see what it gives you, and you write it down. It takes a while. It's fiddly, but whatever. In the end, it's all what eventually what you want to do. All right, high boost switch select. So like you could use the park neutral switch for an automatic, and I think you ground it. I can't remember. Switch that will activate high boost mode. If no switch is selected, then the boost is not selectable, and the low boost curve needs to be set up as the high boost curve. But yeah, you can set one of these switches, one of these wires that goes to the computer, and I can't remember if you ground it or if you put it to 5 volts.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure which, because I haven't done it. I've never done this the switch. I always just had it, you know, I had my part throttle, what I had it as, and I had everything set to what the tables were. So, but that's boost control stuff. You don't have a VNT, so we don't have to worry about that. Wastegate control. We're just going to hit on one table. Is this yeah, from map. Okay. This is that table that I was talking about. Target boost versus duty cycle. You know what duty cycle is?
Not really.
Okay, so say your solenoid is pulsing on and off. Okay.
Yeah.
Duty cycle is, say you have 50% duty cycle. 50% of the time the solenoid is on, and then 50% of the time it's off. Okay.
Okay.
So it's like at probably around 15 times a second, it's going
Yeah.
on and off. Now, say you want it, say 75% duty cycle. That means it's on more than it's off. It's on for 3/4 of the time, and it's off for 1/4 of the time. So that would mean that, so as duty cycle, based on the way this boost control is, if the duty cycle increases, then your boost increases. Now this is only tuned to like 12 pounds.
Yeah.
And this is assuming you would want to use the factory boost control. You have to add another point in here, and 6. And basically, you just kind of follow this curve, more or less. That's kind of what you end up doing. But if you change the hoses around and the restrictor size is different and all that crazy stuff, then you totally have to retune this table. But
Okay.
so the computer, so back in those previous tables where it said boost target lookup, okay, say you want 20 pounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then back in this table, so what's 20 pounds? So, well, I didn't even get there. And we'll just do this for kicks. if the computer wants 20 pounds of boost, then that's roughly 100%. Basically, that's feeding all of the boost, all of the, I think this is set up as a bleed. It bleeds pressure off of that line that goes to the wastegate to keep the wastegate closed to make more boost.
Yeah.
So this is just kind of theoretical. But yeah, say, okay, I want 20 pounds. I set the duty cycle of the solenoid so that it's like always open, and then you get, whatever the max is.
Yeah.
But this is that table, basically, that you would have to tune. But we don't really have to get into that now, especially if you're going to use it. I digress. I end up talking about this stuff forever. All right, full throttle. This is another table. They have it set to nothing. But say if you ease into the throttle, or if you like floor it and at this certain RPM, you always get a giant boost spike. You could pull a little duty cycle out at a certain RPM so you don't get spikes. It was just to make, it was basically for safety.
Yeah.
All right. No, we don't have to worry about that stuff. Calculated tables. Please hope my computer doesn't go berserker. This program will generate a 3D timing map, so you can kind of see what your timing is set to. I don't know. I'm on a kind of old computer, so I don't really want to stay on this table for long because it has some 3D rendering stuff, and I've had it goof things up. All right, cruise control. Is cruise control even hooked up?
I honestly have no idea.
No, we won't worry about this. I mean, there's two things. Max speed. So they limit it to 85. Whoop, just put that up to 128. Minimum speed, they limit it to below 35. I like to drop it to 20. So that if you're in a small town, you can set it to like there's like very few, but there's a few small towns around here that are 25 for speed limit. Then you don't get busted by the cops. Especially with like where do you live?
Pennsylvania, Northeast.
Oh, never mind. You're not up here. Never mind. But there are more. I used to live in Pennsylvania, and I remember more 25-mile-an-hour small towns than up here. So
yeah, I live in a pretty small town.
yeah, but you don't have to worry about the idiotic muffler law that they passed up here.
No.
It's like it's only going to be enforced in like hoity-toity suburban neighborhoods.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, I digress. D-cell fuel shut off. Don't care. Fan control. I like to see how this is set in like the 200s. Fan turn on above 45 mile an hour. I like to have the fan come on at like 190.
Okay.
Just so if you're getting, close, then turn on above there and turn off at 180. Just to keep it from getting too hot.
Yeah.
Same with this one. Turn off at 180. Turn on. This is the around town one. 191. That's fine. It also, when you got boost, fan turns on when map above barrow plus this. Well, that looks wrong. I thought that was much lower. Normally that's like at 3. Whatever. Maybe they were disabling that in this cal. I'm not sure. Like I remember driving around, and when I get to 3 pounds of boost, I would see the lights dim because the fan kicked on. It was just to pull more air through the front end, cool stuff down.
Okay.
All right, things you actually care about. Modifiers. This is your main table.
Yeah.
This one. Pumping efficiency from RPM. A lot of people like to go over to these tables. Fuel running, fuel full throttle, and part throttle. No. These tables, fuel baseline from map, fuel full throttle, and fuel part throttle, those tables assume a 2.5-liter engine, a certain injector size, and 100% of that cylinder being filled with air to maintain a certain air fuel ratio when you give it a certain injector pulse width. So like if you look up in the upper right corner, this yellow line is targeting 14.7, but a turbo car wants it to be richer into boost. Let me go to full throttle real quick. So like the blue number in the upper right corner is 11.22 to 1, with a 2.5, and in this case, because I scaled it just for kicks, 72-pound injectors. This line, if there was 100% of the air at whatever pressure, 20 pounds, is getting into the cylinder, that 14,760 microsecond number, that pulse width would give you an 11.22 to 1 air fuel ratio. But because the head and the cam and the intake manifold and exhaust manifold and stuff, they don't allow for 100% cylinder filling.
Okay.
That's why you have this table. So for tuning, like on the street and stuff, you're going to want to go out. You're going to want to target one of these numbers, 2,700 RPMs. You're going to want to full throttle. Or you're going to want to make sure all the temperatures are stabilized at what they're normally at. Get on a back road, put it in second gear, floor the throttle at 2,800 RPMs, and hit the brakes at the same time to hold it at that RPM and see what your air fuel ratio is. Do you have a wideband on the car?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. And you're going to target whatever that other table says. So 11 point, well, depends on the boost level. Like at 15 pounds, 11.5 to 1 air fuel ratio.
Okay.
But it's based on RPM. The majority of the fuel calculations are based on RPM. So you would go through these points, 32, 35, 43, for 5 grand, close to red line. You don't want to just floor it while logging or watching the air fuel ratios. You want to floor it and keep it at that RPM for like 5 seconds, and so that the temperature stabilizes and the air fuel ratio stabilizes. This is your main fuel table that you have to tune. Yeah, there's not, the other ones, the other table down here, like fuel full throttle, because these are basically kind of calculated tables based on an air fuel ratio and an engine size and injector size and stuff. You don't have to mess with these too much. If these kind of figure themselves out, if this table is tuned in right. And so typically what I'll do is I'll set the boost as low as it can go, and then go, because you're not hammering on the car so hard. And then I'll go and I'll tune all these points in the pumping efficiency table so that your air fuel ratio is what you want for the boost level that it's at. And then I start raising the boost slowly, and it's usually pretty much perfect for this, like this part or this full throttle table. If it's not, then you can add a point here and just bump this up at a higher boost level or something like that. But the main table is this pumping efficiency table. So then there's a couple things I like to do in here though. Full fuel part throttle. So not only can you compare 2 different calibrations to each other, but you can, let's see, am I in the full throttle? No, full throttle. I can compare one table to another table. So the full throttle table is going to be more rich. So settings, where is it? We're set as, oh, no. Wait, I haven't done this in a while, crap. There it is. Right click on the full throttle table, my bad, and hit set as overlay table. And then click on the part throttle. And if overlay is on, it's going to overlay the full throttle on top of the part throttle.
Okay.
So the reason why I like to do this is the part throttle is leaner. You can see that the blue line is lower than the orange line.
Yeah.
I like to, at around here, I like to just bring this up to like this point here, so that if you have to back off on the throttle a little bit, but you're still at full boost, it doesn't go lean. And then
Okay.
I take this arrow at the end and I bring it back down so it's in line with the full throttle. Because the factory calibration expects the computer to be controlling the boost, they
Yeah.
don't expect you to be at part throttle because they're going to pull out boost at part throttle. They don't expect you to be at part throttle in higher boost ranges. So they don't bother tuning up here. They just have it dump in a ton of fuel. But I can go and get in my car and go rip down the road and have to back out of it just a smidge. And I'm actually in part throttle, but I have enough fuel there. So it doesn't matter.
Okay.
So that's a tweak for safety. And I think that's it. Oh, if once your pumping efficiency is dialed in and your full throttle is pretty solid, there's no issues, there's no weird stuff when you're full throttle. If you're like, let's see, fuel baseline for map. This fuel baseline for map is kind of your no throttle table.
Okay.
So your idle is going to be, down in here somewhere. If everything else is dialed in and your idle is a little lean or a little rich or whatnot, you can mess with these points down here just to
Okay.
get the idle to be reasonable. But yeah, that's that table. But you want to do that once the car is totally warmed up. If it's still giving you a
Okay.
little bit rich at idle or a little bit lean at idle, then you can adjust these points here. But you got to do that with it warmed up. Because the other thing you'll run into is these enrichment curves. This is like your choke. Your curve B is like a choke on a carburetor.
Yeah.
And it's in place at all times. So you want to watch, see like -40. Well, you won't have to worry about that, but say like, 12 degrees, winter time. I don't know if you plan on driving this thing in the winter.
No, I don't.
Yeah, I didn't think so. I don't drive any of my Turbo Chrysler stuff in the winter. But um, like 11 degrees. We'll say let's say 40, right? If you start the car and once everything else is dialed in and you start the car and at 40 degrees, it's just puking fuel out, it's too rich, then you would adjust this table down a little bit to take out some of that warm-up fuel, but that'll take a while. You'll have to have a bunch of cold starts to see whether it's rich or lean at various temperatures. But
Yeah.
that table phases to nothing at 160 degrees.
Okay.
So, but yeah, this increases the fueling as the car warms up. These two are short-term after start, A and C. So A, they don't have the comment in here to say what they are. If it's cold start, I think one of them's like 22 seconds, and I can't remember which one's which. I mean, they have this big old formula down here on how to figure it out, but one of them's like 22 seconds and the other one is phased out by like a minute. But if the pumping efficiency is pretty good and your fuel baseline from map isn't rich at idle, then these curves, A and C should be fine, and B as well. Mine's a little rich when I start it up when it's cold, but I haven't bothered to fix it.
Yeah.
It heats up pretty quick.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again,
Mine.
I mean, you're phased out of those tables in a minute or less. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's how that stuff works. If you download like an older like a Turbinator LM or a Turbinator SMEC calibration and open it up and look for those tables in there, it has a better definition.
Okay.
That says how long it has a little like some number calculations on how long they're enabled. They're based on decay rate. Oh yeah, is this where it says it? Curve A cold decay time. Is that 9? They're like, these are like timeouts. They hold it on and then it decays to phase it out. but I can't remember the exact, the exact values. I just remember one's like 22 seconds and one's like a minute, and they're
Mm,
on for less time if the car's warm.
yeah. Okay.
All right. So that's that stuff. How much time do you got?
I've got all night.
All right. Starting. Oh, wait. I missed the table. That's important. Um, Fuel battery offset. This is your latency curve based on voltage. So an injector, you said most of the stuff you've tuned before is with a screwdriver.
Yeah, yeah, like an old Cummins engine and
Oh,
carbureted
yeah,
gas
yeah, yeah.
engines. Yeah.
Right. All right. So fuel injectors, there's weight to the little pintle that's moving up and down to let the fuel through.
Okay.
So you'll hit, say, at a given voltage, when the fuel injector driver says, turn on now, there's a delay, there's a latency. And it's different. There's a latency. There's a latency from when it commands it on to when fuel actually squirts out, because there's weight to these little mechanical things that are clicking back and forth.
Uh-huh.
And at different voltages, there's a different latency value in microseconds. So at 12 point, this one says at 12.3 volts, you have roughly 500 microseconds of latency. So 500 microseconds of nothing before fuel squirts out. And this only affects like idle, basically, really low RPM. It just makes and you shouldn't have to worry about this. I think this is set based on the injectors that are in there. But if you went to get like an aftermarket 72 pound or a big injector, say you got a ported head and a cam and a giant exhaust and an intercooler, and that turbo's fairly large that's on there,
Yeah.
and you're making power and you need more injector, because plus 20s on a 2.5 aren't going to last that long. 42
Yeah.
pound, like 72, unless you got all of them, all of everything, 72 would probably be the biggest you'd need. But depending on where you buy them from, those 72-pound injectors will come with a sheet that says what voltage and what latency they are. So you could go in and just copy the data from that table. This is in microseconds. It's probably the values they're going to give you is probably milliseconds. So
Okay.
it's a factor of 1,000.
Yeah.
So 947 microseconds is 0.947 milliseconds. So they usually give you the injector data in milliseconds. But if you get to that point, I'll help you. All right. That's important. Starting, people used to start fuel from temp. People used to, why is that one highlighted? That's weird. I don't have another calibration open. I don't know. That's weird, but don't worry about that. If you have a big aftermarket fuel rail, because sometimes the factory fuel rails, I don't know what fuel rail is on the car, but
It's a
sometimes
factory.
factory. Um, is it a one piece intake or a two piece?
One piece. It's a factory.
So the fuel comes in one end, it goes down and down through a tube, I want to say, and back through to where the regulator is.
Um, I think I'm not sure on this, but I'm pretty sure that the fuel comes in at the same end that the regulator is on,
Yep.
and it comes out. I think I don't remember correctly, but I think the tube that goes to the regulator is on the same side. Or
Yeah, it is. All right.
yeah.
So there's an internal tube, I'm pretty sure,
Hmm.
that sends the fuel to the other end of the rail, and then it flows back and hits all the injectors, and then it goes to the regulator.
Okay.
So depending on power level, that fuel rail can be a restriction.
Okay.
So what guys will do is they'll buy an aftermarket regulator from Chris at Turbos Unleashed, or
Yeah.
Cindy at Front Wheel Drive Performance,
Yeah.
or they'll just chop the ends off of that one and weld on TIG weld fittings on to make a, a big rail.
Yeah.
But when you do that, this key on prime pulse width,
Yeah.
this needs to be cranked up a little bit because
Okay.
you have you have more fuel rail to fill when it excuse me, when it like kicks the fuel pump on and to prime everything and stuff.
Okay.
But not much. You just got to bring it up a little bit. Or you just click the key twice. Sometimes it won't want to start if you have a big fuel rail because it won't fill up from the fuel pump.
Yeah.
So if your fuel pressure dropped after a day or two or something, so sometimes it'll be like and it'll stall. So you just click the key on twice and then it starts. Whatever.
Gotcha.
This is fussy stuff. Fuel transient enrichment. Where is it? In AIS enrichment. No. Delta map. Nope, not lean out. We want enrichment. Not that crazy looking table. Where is it in here? Multiplier from RPM? No. Pump shot calculation. There it is. Map. Delta map enrichment. Transient enrichment pulse width addition. Trigger level. And enrichment time from temp. All right. So say you crack the throttle open and a big rush of air comes in and the you get a change in map map sensor pressure, and it's not going to be like big boost pressure. It's going to be, I know it says 1.2 psi right here in the middle, upper middle, but they're doing it in psi, but it could be from low vacuum to higher vacuum, but it's more than a 1 pound change. This transient pulse width addition, this is going to, if you get a little burst of air into the intake manifold, this table based on temperature is going to squirt a little extra fuel in to compensate, like the accelerator pump on a carburetor. But this one's based on map changes. The other one is based on enrichment from temp. This one is when you crack the throttle position sensor changes. Then it'll squirt a little extra fuel in, like an accelerator pump on a carburetor. You may have to adjust these. Positive trans. So enrichment from temp, you would probably just add a little bit at the temperature. Like say it's warmed up, you probably just bump this table up a little bit because like on my car, I haven't bothered to do it. I'll just throttle tip in, and I'll get a little 15, 16 to 1 air fuel ratio stumble, blah, 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 like that. And I haven't bothered to tune it out. It's a little bit annoying. I could tune it out. I know which table to do. It's these two, but I just haven't bothered doing it. And my car's been on the road since, with a turbo setup, 2004. So. Wow. And I haven't bothered since then. But yeah, anyway, but those are the pump shot calculation tables in transient enrichment. That's, if you have a little off throttle, a little just throttle tip in stumble, lean stumble, those are the two things you need to change. And it can change if you go from a stock throttle body to a giant throttle body, you're probably going to have to change the map tip in more than the TPS, because a tiny little blip, and that's probably what mine is, tiny little blip of the throttle makes it go lean. And because I have a 58 millimeter throttle body from a van. So
I have a 52 that I'm waiting to put on.
Yep. So that's that. Don't need to worry about the rest of this stuff. Idle, not so much, unless it does goofy things and won't idle. Idle or AIS decel, you don't generally have to worry about that. Oh, wait, was it you that texted me about it? The idle hanging high?
Yeah.
Did it settle down?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. Mostly, yeah.
If you reset the computer, it'll be like if you're
Yeah.
coasting, and and then eventually it learns and relaxes.
Yeah. We had a local fair here and the fairgrounds is, like small, and
Yeah,
it was in first gear just ripping me through that parking lot.
that mine does that in the yard when I go to
Yeah.
drive through the yard, and the kids like, take me for a ride in the yard, and I'm like, boo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm. So let's see what else we got. But you can ASD cell AC, no, not AC. Addition to control map from RPM. It would be a table in here. I don't know exactly which one it. One of these decel AIS from temp might be this one. No, because that goes to 0. Never mind. I don't know if it. I mean, no AIS control of map and control. No. There's a million tables for drivability in here.
Yeah.
Rolling AIS. Maybe this is it. High limit. I bet you rolling AIS high limit. If you bump that down, it might get that under control, but I'm not sure. That's a wild guess. I'd have to look back through. Yeah, there's a million AIS tables. But I've never bothered tuning those. So the names aren't too bad, but they're kind of hokey. So you
Yeah.
don't always know what you're looking at.
Yeah. I,
But
I've noticed that. I go through and I'm like, I have no idea what that could possibly mean.
yeah. What was his was in one of these tables. Oh, wait a minute. This. I, I wonder if it's this one. If you drop this down, AIS position from throttle. So if you're off idle, bet you if you played around with these to lower them or make them higher or change this angle right here of this little slope, that might get it under control without having to wait for it to learn. AIS startup position from temp. I mean, yeah, there's a zillion tables in here. But I think Wayne's issue was it some base something or other, and it was a single number. AIS position AIS motor is at idle. RPM threshold for idle control. I don't know. Forward AS steps. Start a position from temp. I don't know. I can get lost in here just looking around. And I know what a lot of these do. Idle ASD cell special setup. Constant spark advance. Nah, you don't have to worry about this stuff. Overboost. Now that should all be disabled already.
Okay.
Overboost speed and rev limiter. Don't bother trying to scream a 2.5 to $7,000.
Yeah.
No, not without a head and a giant cam and everything ported. They, I mean, 4.09 inch stroke and a 3.445 inch bore. It's not a screamer.
Yeah.
I barely get to 6 on mine, and I have a G head. I have the earlier head that flows a little better. I still have a stock cam, and I have a ported 2-piece, ported lower, and then one of them Langle giant tube plenums. So
Oh
it'll
wow.
rev to 6, but it's not making, it's making more power than a stock 2.5 at $6,000. But I would need a ported head and a cam to rev it more, and I don't really want to. I don't want to to come apart. I've
Yeah.
had this motor together for a while, and it's getting hard to find like the performance rod bearings and stuff. So, but this is where the rev limiter is, 6,200, and it comes back alive at 59. Um, Oh yeah, speed limit, fuel shut off. Turn those up. Turn both of these the whole way up because you don't want to shut down at 118 RPM or 118 mile an hour. I think I think I already did that to that tune.
Okay.
All right, over boost, fuel shut off, disable point for map limp. You don't want to disable this one. So if you would get to 13 pounds with something with like the TPS closed or something like that, it'll
Uh-huh.
shut the motor down.
Okay.
So don't get rid of that. Overboost fuel shut off duration. There's a little debate what this actually does. I suppose I could test it, but I always just set it to 0. I figured that, well, okay, it's going to shut the fuel off for 1.021 seconds. That seems to make sense. So I set it to 0. So it'll shut the fuel off for 0 seconds. Some people set it to the max. I don't know. I guess I'd have to go pawn through the code or just set it to 5 seconds and set the overboost really low and hit it and see what it does. But I always just set it to 0. And then these two, overboost fuel shut off enable point for map absolute, set that to the max so it doesn't shut down. And this one from enable point for map timer, I set that one to the max too. That way there's no overboost shutdown anymore. You got to be careful, but there's no, you could set it to like, I don't know, 25 pounds or something like that, but I always just disable it and behave. PTU. Does this have something to do with torque converter? I'm not exactly sure. Is this torque converter stuff for an automatic? I mean, lock up. I don't know. These tables aren't typically in the calibrations that I work with, so because I don't do a ton of 90, 91 stuff. So I just ignore that. Purge control, that's that charcoal canister. I don't even know if it's hooked up in that car. So I won't worry about these. Alternator diagnosis, not worried about that. Cal configuration. This is setup stuff. All right. Should I open up that other one that I did? Let's see what I have these set to. Bigger turbo. And then we'll go to setup. So I have the staging limiter enabled, and I have the flash check engine on knock enabled. So if you're boosting and the check engine light comes on, that means it's pulling timing from knock.
Okay.
Staging limiter, if you're below, let's see, what's it set to? Turbinator, staging limiter. If you're below 4 mile an hour, you have a rev limit at 4,000 RPM, and it's on all the time. So you can sit there and just floor it, and it'll just go against the rev limiter at 4 grand and build boost.
Yeah, I have that on my tunes.
Yep. Okay.
I don't actually build any boost for some
No.
reason. No, just the gauge just sits at 0.
Okay. Well, I used to. Well, that was a stock turbo though too. This turbo on your car's a bit bigger.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I don't think the SBEC, this SBEC stuff has the stuff that the 89 computers have, where it starts randomly pulling timing and retarding the ignition and stuff.
okay.
Because I have an 89 computer, and so I can sit there and go, and it's like popping and banging and makes like 15 pounds.
Oh
And
my god.
and it's banging, like two-step battle banging.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy. And I'm like, I hope I don't break a rod or something. But yeah, I do it when I come home and the kids are on the porch jumping around, and I go, and the boys are like, woohoo! And my daughter's like, no, stop it, it's too loud. Good times. So custom config flags 2, fuel-based rev limiter. Yeah, they were working on a spark-based rev limiter so they could do that anti-lag and bang bang stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Rob, the guy who originally did all this, he, stopped fiddling around, and the other guys that tinker around in here, Morris Wowzer is his name on the board. He's, everybody's busy.
Yeah.
So, all right. You don't really have to worry about this stuff. AC installed, Let's see, anything else? I don't think there's fan relay. Masks, blah, blah, blah. These are just like, this is all like stock type setup stuff.
Okay.
The Cal custom options at the top two tables,
Yeah.
those are the things that you could turn on and off. And I think in this one, let me go to number 2. Fuel stage. Oh, this one's a little different. Oh, yeah, these tables are going to be in a slightly different area than the ones that I'm showing you, but it'll have all the same tables. I guess I can't remember. Oh yeah, because this is stock, and the one that I based this one on was one of Rob Lloyd's stage 2 calibrations that he came up with. So the order of these tables is a little bit different, but not much. Not anything to really worry about. All right, what else we got here? Setup. DRB. Unless you have a Chrysler DRB, you don't really have to worry about that. And you don't anyway because it's already set up like stock. O2 sensor stuff, no. Onboard, no. No. Oh, transfer functions. If you have a wideband connected to the stock O2 wiring, and sending it 0 to 5 volt, I think, is there a transfer function in here for that? No, I don't know if this one has it set up. One of the calibrations you can send, does it have it? Hold on, let me go look. Is it setup cal? Wideband to narrowband conversion. So you can send your 0 to 5 volt wideband signal to the factory O2 wire, signal wire, but there is no wideband and narrowband. There we go. And then the computer will just take the factory 0 to 5 volt wideband signal and create basically a narrowband style signal from it. That's this one. I don't think you have to mess with this, but this one you have to set what your sensor is.
Okay.
What the output is. If 0 is whatever. I remember having to ramp my head around this though. Or wrap my head around this because there was something weird that you had to do, but I can't remember it off the top of my head right now. It was something to do with this. Hold on, let me look over here for a sec. I think you just put in these numbers. There was a big thread about it. Let me write it down to go look because I can't remember exactly. But you can always just run the stock O2 sensor and then run the wideband after the fact just to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Look for wideband to narrowband thread. Because there was a big discussion and I was confused on how it worked at first, and then I figured it out, and I know it's documented somewhere. So, okay. Transfer functions, thermostat, diagnostics, nah. Spark adaptive retard. You don't really have to worry about that. Spark anti-lag. Well, the anti-lag's not actually workable in this cal, so don't worry about that. Dwell control, knock retard. Okay, knock retard. You do got to worry about this a little bit. So this table is your RPM versus knock sensor voltage. You
Okay.
can't like put a meter on the knock sensor and read the voltage off of that. It's like internal to the computer. There's a circuit that takes like the AC wave that's coming off the knock sensor and converts it to a 0 to 5 volt signal.
Okay.
Basically, this table, as the engine gets noisier, as the RPMs increase, the engine gets noisier, and so the level above the noise of the engine that is knock gets higher. So this table, you don't really have to tune this unless you're making a ton of power. But this is what tells the computer, hey, I'm knocking, and then you'll see your check engine light come on.
Okay.
And then if it's like for a split second, just comes on, goes right back off, whoop-de-doo. But if you're in it and it comes on and it stays on, then let off.
Okay.
But this table can be tuned to your individual setup. I remember seeing like a table, like a custom one that somebody from Chrysler back in the day tuned, and it was more like something like this, where it was less sensitive. But I usually just stick with the stock one just for safety. Um, you can get like microphones and attach them to the block and stuff like that and listen to see if it's actually knocking.
Mm.
And then you can creep this up a little bit so it's less sensitive, but that's later. Let's see. Knock retard. Yeah, these you don't have to mess with. Normally, okay, spark. Here we go. Important things. Advanced from map cold. You don't have to mess with this table. Let's see. There is, where is it? Engine temp switch point for spark advance. This advanced from map cold was some emissions thing. If you're at, let's see, where was it? Engine switch temp switch point for spark advance. I usually just set this to 0, so you never use this table. You
Okay.
just use your regular full throttle and part throttle pressure based advance curves.
Okay.
So these are your 3 timing tables that you're going to mess with. Advance from RPM 2. Those are like distributor weights that
Okay.
swing out and increase your spark advance as
Oh,
RPM
yep.
goes up.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's this table. So if you have an RPM that always wants to knock, okay, let's say 4,000 RPM because it's a 2.5, the torque peak is probably somewhere around here. You may need to take like, a degree out of this table if you always have a specific RPM that knocks.
Okay.
The other table, they're tuned fairly conservatively up to, they're not really tuned to 14 pounds, but they're kind of tuned to 14 pounds. What I end up doing is I end up adding a point here. Move this. I end up adding a point here. And I look in that chart to the right
Yeah.
and I, just add one after everything. But and then you tend to have to if you're going more than 15 pounds of boost or whatever, you end up having to ramp this down some. Sometimes you just follow this last slope. Sometimes you got to take a little more away, but you start slowly creeping up the boost. And if your check engine light turns on at a boost level that you're at, then add a point at that boost level and just blip it down until it stops knocking.
Okay.
Generally, but generally just adding a little bit of ignition retard after where the factory stopped tuning it is fine for the most part. So the other thing I like to do is I like to right click on the full throttle table and set it as overlay table. And then I click on the part throttle table, settings, overlay on. Now, the reason why the part throttle table is less, normally the part throttle table has more, but there's some adaptive advance in the calibration where it'll move spark advance up and down and stuff. But I like to insert a point here and just drag this down at kind of like the same rate as the full throttle table, just for safety. Say you're into boost, you got to back off a little bit, then you won't get knocked then.
Gotcha.
Yep. And advance from RPM. And I said that's just if you have a specific RPM that likes to knock, you pull a tiny little bit of timing out of there. Yeah. People like look at this table, advance from RPM max. Whoa, what do I got to do in there? Nothing. It's fine. Just leave it alone. Now this but my advance from RPM max is different in this cow than it isn't. But your max advance is like 50 degrees. That's just when you're like deep into vacuum. You're never gonna, as soon as you touch the throttle, you're not even gonna have to think about that table.
Gotcha.
Anyway, so I don't really mess with anything in here. Default spark advance. This is when you unplug the temperature sensor, so you can set your base timing to 12. Have you had to do that?
No.
Have you had any of these cars before?
Nope.
Oh, okay. So there's a window in the top of the transmission in the bell housing,
Okay.
and it has like sometimes there's a foam plug in it. It's right in the middle of the top of the bell housing, underneath like the piping and throttle bar. Just look straight down from the end of the head and look at the top of the transmission. And there's like a window there with little timing marks 0, 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, so you hook your timing light up to spark plug number 1, and then let the car warm the whole way up idling, and then you unplug the temperature sensor by the thermostat.
Mm-hmm.
And the one with the 2-pin connector, not the one on the front of the head that feeds the gauge, but the 2-pin connector on the side. And then you shine your timing light down in there and see there's like a little mark on the flywheel, and you'll see that. And then you turn loosen the bolt for the distributor and turn that so that it's at 12.
Okay.
That doesn't mean you have 12 degrees of advance. That's just a reference. Like what you see in these advanced tables is the advance that you have, if that's set to 12. It's just a reference point.
Gotcha.
Yep. So multiple and spark advance, don't worry about that. That's a confusing table anyway. But yeah, just these three pretty much. Scatter control, that's for idle. Don't worry about that. Spark start to run transfer, you shouldn't have to change any of this stuff. I've never changed any of those tables ever. Okay, turbinator, this is like the custom stuff. So because these motors are a little noisy when they're cold, you could get false knock. So this disables the check engine light turn on for knock below 103 degrees, so just so you don't see it and freak out.
Okay.
You can use you can in those where was it, setup cal configuration, where is it, swims in here, shift light enable. You could put like an LED bulb so off of your check engine light, so off of those wires, that as a shift light, because the LED will come on fast enough for you to actually react. So but you could turn that on here, and then down in this table you can set the RPM. You could use the check engine light for a shift light. Staging limiter, so this one's set to below 10 mile an hour. I set yours to 4. So and then your RPM off when the rev limiter kicks in, RPM on when it allows the engine to run again. Those are usually set within like 200 RPMs of each other. And then I don't have it set to a switch. I have it enabled all the time. Now, with that, if your speed sensor dies and you're driving around, you could be going against the rev limiter because it needs a speed sensor to signal to shut off. So that happened to Sean one time. He was, we were at SDAC, the car club, and we were down in, we were in Kentucky, just south of Cincinnati. And he, I think we were like, he brought this Charger down, and it was a beater that he slapped together. That I think he bought off one of our other friends, and he goes out. I make him a tune, and he goes out on the street to rip, and all I hear is rap as he's just pounding off like a 4,000 RPM rev limiter.
Oh
And
my
he comes back in. I go, "Did you ever hook up a speed sensor?" He's like, "No, I didn't do any of that stuff." So
God.
then we had to like find a connector and cobble in the speed sensor wiring so it would actually rev to red line.
Wow.
But so you'll know when your speed sensor goes bad real quick because they'll be like
Yeah.
blah 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 blah. So let's see. Voltage regulator. They Rob, who made this code base years ago, put in, you know, uh so you could change the voltage target. Like you could have it charge a 16-volt battery, I think, if the rest of the, you know, like on race cars, if the rest of the electronics could handle it, but they
Mhm.
wouldn't. They'd probably die. So don't do
Yeah.
that. And then these are those wideband and narrowband tables that yeah, that I forget exactly how you set one of these curves to. Um, was it this one? Whatever. I'll figure that out and I'll get back to you because I forget exactly how to do it, but I know it's written down somewhere. But that's really about it.
Okay.
Probably takes me longer to explain it than do it. So,
Yeah.
and I'm pretty long-winded.
Um, all
Any
right.
questions?
Yeah, let me try to think. That was a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh yeah, so with having a manual boost controller, do you think that, the original tune, the original whatever they're called, uh like what you had with, max boost pressure and stuff like that, boost pressure from RPM or something like that.
Okay. Target
Um,
lookup. All this target lookup stuff.
yeah, do you think is that like not really factored in? Like, is that not
Yes.
really in use when I have a manual boost controller?
Right. It's ignoring all of this stuff.
Okay,
I
yeah.
mean, the computer's still doing the calculations,
But they're not being
and
inputted.
it's probably pulsing the solenoid,
Yeah.
but it's not hooked up. So you're totally in control of the boost with the manual boost controller. Yes.
Okay. And do you think that would be an advantage for me to hook up those original solenoids?
It's all what you want. If you want to fiddle, right? I mean, it has the potential to be nice, so you can have part throttle real mellow and docile.
Yeah.
Um, and like with this one, part throttle, you can set it so, because normally how a turbo car, right? Tiny little bit of throttle and the boost is like, "Woo!"
Yeah.
it's trying to give you the max. You could
Mhm.
have it make it more linear. It's all in what you want. If you want to fiddle around with it and try to hook it up, like mine, my setup, I have an electronic boost controller, like an HDI.
Mhm.
I forget the model number. It has two knobs. It has a low and high boost setting and has a little switch. Um, it's nice, but it tries to make 1,000,000 pounds all the time.
Yeah.
And so, like, if I'm just going through town and I want to be quiet, then all you hear is,
Yeah.
like crazy. So, um, but it's I guess it's all in what you want, you know. It's fun to go boosting around town and make a ton of noise.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, because when I got the car, Brian, sorry, not Brian, near Brian,
Hmm. Sean.
Sean told me that, 12 pounds he had it set to, and
Yeah.
then I broke an actuator arm, a wastegate actuator arm, and so I was getting like no boost, and I was
Yeah.
really confused. I thought it was like boost leaks or something weird, but yeah,
Right.
when I realized that arm was broken, I fixed that, and
Hmm.
then I maxed it out at 10 psi. So I was like, there's got to be something wrong. Like I was fifth gear. I had someone taking a video of the gauges to like kind of a data log, see what
Data
was.
log. Yeah. Video data
Yeah.
log.
And I was like, it was at like 9 AFR, 10 pounds of boost. And yeah,
Not too rich.
yeah. So I'm working on that with the manual boost controller. Um,
Okay.
I've got it mostly tuned out. Like I see like 11.2 a lot,
Okay.
but
That's not bad.
eventually it'll drop down to like 9.9.
Oh,
Um,
at higher RPMs or something?
yeah, yeah.
So there's too much fuel in fuel modifiers. Well, this is the factory 2.5. Hold on one sec. Okay. And comp. All right. So I put more fuel in it
Mhm.
because um the turbo exhaust side, because it's a bigger turbo and the exhaust and stuff should flow more.
Yeah.
But do you know when's it start at 11? Like down here?
Um, well, I couldn't tell you based on RPM because that isn't really working all the time.
Oh,
PM gauge. Yeah,
oh,
it
right, right, right.
likes
Okay.
to go crazy if I hammer on it.
Oh, hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's some electrical issue, but
Well, it's probably the connectors on the back of the dash.
yeah,
Chrysler always had broken solder joints, and Neons and Omnis and all of
um,
these cars had broken solder joints where the connector goes into the back of the gauge cluster. It might be that.
okay, yeah. Well, I'll definitely check that out.
Yep.
But I know like I mean I guess so in a regular data log you like same gear, same RPM. Yeah, so I wasn't really. I guess I wasn't doing it right. I didn't. I was just trying to see what the car would do, but I
You
was
can
going.
get you can get close riding out fourth gear.
Yeah.
Start at a low RPM in fourth gear and floor it, because it'll be at these points for longer time. So
Okay.
that's what you want. You want to be at these points for a while so you get a good sample, and the
Yeah.
heat, everything concerning heat has stabilized.
Yeah.
But you know, but fourth gear, I mean, you're cruising.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you
Well,
need a good.
I was. I This was more just to see like what my maximum boost I could make and how rich it was going. But
Okay.
I was like fifth gear on the floor, uh, 10 pounds of boost. Like I said, until I swapped out the manual boost controller, and
Mm-hmm.
that helped. When I got the Turbo Smart, that
Now
helped.
you can now you can get up to 12.
Yeah. Well, no,
Okay.
I actually haven't seen 12 yet. I
Oh,
was
okay.
messing around with it today.
Mm-hmm.
With the other manual boost controller, like
Yeah.
you'd get 3 pounds, 4 pounds quickly, but it wouldn't increase much.
Oh, hmm.
Yeah, it was weird. So I think that was leaking or something. But
Yeah. What actuator did you put on it? You said you broke?
yeah, it broke, and I just welded the piece that broke off back on.
Oh, there's not a ton of room back there. You got to make sure it's not, hit it like, lower pressure regulated air from a compressor, and just
Yeah.
make it move back and forth, making sure it's not catching on the back of the intake manifold.
Yeah, I had a vacuum pump I was doing it with because it's a dual port.
No, sure, sure.
Um, but I also think I might have messed up a little bit when I put it back on because
Okay.
I was reading somewhere that you're supposed to have like 2 millimeters or two something of space. I did it so
Preload.
that yeah, preload. I had it.
Oh, you don't have any preload?
No.
Oh yeah, that's part of the reason why you won't have any boost. You also want to make sure the little pivot arm
Oh,
that controls the flapper.
yeah.
You want to make sure that that's actually closing.
Okay.
And if you drop the downpipe bolts and shine a flashlight up in there, because sometimes they catch on the hole, and then they don't cover the hole, and so you'll jiggle around and hear it go clunk, and it'll actually close. If and
Uh,
that's largely when you don't have enough preload either. I usually have it so I have to pull the rod out, like, I don't know. Well, yeah, two. I usually probably have almost an eighth of an inch of preload.
okay.
But
And
then,
that holds it open originally, like partially open.
closed, holds it closed.
So that's yeah, that's my issue because I have it probably so it's yeah, not sealing perfectly.
Yeah, so pull the thing closed, right? And then you'll have to pull the arm of the actuator out against the spring to
Yeah.
get it over the peg. And then are you putting the E-clip back on,
Yeah.
or you get a pair of alligator clips?
Okay.
They slide right over that peg and that little,
Yeah.
and like if you slide them the whole way up to the hinge, they like click. They're perfect because then you can reach back in there once it cools down without burning yourself to death,
Yeah.
and just grab the alligator clips and pull them off, and it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
Like a
Okay.
small alligator clip, and cut the excess off that you don't need, because
Okay.
like when it slides over the peg, right before the hinge, there's like a little opened up area,
Yeah.
and then that's perfect for getting on getting on the end of that peg and keeping the arm on without being a nightmare with like the E-clip,
Yeah.
getting that E-clip on and not having to go choo and losing it forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
So a little bit of preload. Don't go too crazy. Um,
Okay.
you 2 millimeter, 2.5, 3, probably a little safer. If it's lazy, you might need a smidge more. I don't know,
Yeah,
but
I think that's definitely my issue because it builds boost really slow.
slow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I know that turbo's a little bigger than the stock one.
Yeah.
If it's the one that he had on there.
Yeah, it's the 0.63 AR. I think it's a 50 millimeter compressor wheel.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Um, well, hold on. I know one of them that he bought was from eBay, which is
Yeah,
fine.
it's an eBay turbo.
It's the eBay one. All right, I know which one it is. Yeah, and I remember when he first put it on there, the wastegate was stuck, and he's like, "Man, I'm like 18 pounds of boost, and the thing's all over the road." It's
Yeah, it doesn't scare me at 18 pounds of boost.
oh man, 23 is fun,
He
but you need really good
told me that,
gas,
oh, I'm sorry, what?
but you need really good gas.
Yeah, yeah, he told me that head gaskets give out at like 20, I thought.
Depends on what you use. Um, I I popped one head. No wait, I popped two. I popped one because I have a boost controller in backwards and I got 30 pounds. Oops.
Oh gosh.
I popped a head gasket then.
Yeah.
And then I had one pop October of 2019, but that's because the block wasn't totally flat. The head was flat, but around all the head bolts, the block had like crept up over however many bazillions of years. And I don't think I ever surfaced it when I put the motor together. I just, it's fine. Razor
Yeah.
blade, clean, put a new head gasket on, boom.
Yeah.
So I think I have the Mopar Performance. Well, they're a different part number now. You can get them through Rock Auto. Um, there's a head gasket.
I know they've got a couple aftermarket ones on front wheel drive performance.
Yeah. Depends on what. Where's D? Did I go past it already? Of course I did. Let's say there's a specific one for this scroll. This trackpad on this computer's kind of crap. 85. Damn it. Say Omni Turbo. Is it in engine or is it in cylinder head gasket? So this Felpro one, 9296 PT, they have people used to hate these because
Yeah.
if you look in the picture, you really can't see it very well. But right here, can you see my mouse?
Uh-huh.
Right here in that corner there,
Yeah.
that would always, on both sides, that would always blow out. Now they've like the whole bottom of this gasket is one piece of sheet steel,
Yeah.
and they've wrapped it around this area. So it's
Okay.
a lot stronger than it used to be. That one's not too bad anymore. Um, where's the no, that's gonna be garbage. Um, shucks, there was a Mopar part number. I may have let me put it on my list. You can get the factory gasket. And it's basically the same as the Mopar Performance from back in the day.
Oh, okay.
Unless some parts hoarder bought them all, because that happens. Let's see. Yeah, I don't see it in here, but there is a Mopar one. I'd have to look up the number, but I put it on my list of things to look up. Because I've run 20 plus pounds on factory gaskets for a long time.
Oh, okay.
And the Mopar one, the Felpro, you know, maybe,
Right.
especially the newer version that wraps around those corners is better. It's a lot better. And I know a lot of people have, like, you know, pounded those things to the moon and had good luck with them, as long as your block and your head's flat. And for a little bit extra protection, use the copper head gasket spray for the later multi-layer steel stuff.
Okay.
And then that seals them up. But yeah, our Sean, our other friend Scott Lasky, he has an 85 Charger, the 2.5, you know, ported head cam, you know, all the stuff. And he bought those Cometic multi-layer steel head gaskets from Cindy.
Yeah.
Because you can reuse them, but your block and your head have to be perfectly flat and a nice, smooth finish.
Yeah.
So
Gotcha.
for those to seal. I like the Mopar gasket, and I have ARP head studs.
Yeah.
So, but
All right.
and if you're running an actual 90 head and block, they have little cross drill holes between the cylinders and stuff for better cooling around the head and stuff. So if you have those, there's a different part number for that gasket than there is for if if the head's cross drilled and the block isn't, or if the block's cross drilled and the head isn't, then there's a different part number. So I'll look those up.
Okay.
Actually, I can just go take a picture of the gasket that I have in the garage. So when I get off of this call here, but and text it to you, because you could still get that gasket. At least last year when I ordered a couple of them, you could.
Okay.
And I have a 85 head and a 92 block, so I have the cross drills in the block but not in the head, so I run the different gasket. But
Gotcha.
I think I have some of the old Mopar Performance 006. It was like the Mopar Performance 005. It was like 49 blah blah blah. 005 was the cross drilled, non-cross drilled combo of old and new parts, and the 006 was all cross drilled. So, but
Gotcha. Let me try to think if there's any other questions I have for you.
sure.
I really can't think of them now. But I mean, I guess it's all right with you if I ever text you with a question.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
And I'm not like on Facebook or anything.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the guys are. Did you go on turbo-mopar.com yet?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your username on there?
91 Day Shelby, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh,
right.
yeah. One question
Okay.
I did have.
Sure.
You were going through the thing. It was one of the ones where there was you could check the boxes for certain things. It wasn't for one of the like buttons, I think, you know, like where you could hook something up to the park neutral switch or something.
It was
Yeah.
like it.
It was the one with anti-lag and something else there.
There's
Yeah.
the anti-lag there.
Oh, I think it was a different one. One
Uh,
below that maybe.
Number 2.
Yeah, all of this stuff. So like launch control, that is basically the secondary rev limiter, right?
Yeah, on yours. Let's see. Setup. Cal. Oh, these two calibrations are slightly different.
Yeah.
So launch control is staging limiter enable.
Okay.
It's the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And I have it enabled. Well, yeah, but it still doesn't build a ton of boost. That older version was hit or miss. I mean, it still would, most of the time it would make some boost. I don't remember. Oh, let's see in here. Staging limiter, cutoff speed. You just turn the RPM higher if it doesn't make
Oh
any
yeah.
loose. If it doesn't make any boost. In the other versions, um, for like, so the guy who made all this code stuff and changes, he had an 89 Daytona.
Yeah.
So the 88 and 89 computers are the same. And then like 87 other people use, that's a different setup. 88 and 89 are the same. 90, 91 are pretty much the same. And so he had an 89 so he could test everything at home. And
Yeah.
and so that one's the most developed.
Gotcha.
But you would have to build some kind of adapter harness, and certain things might not work on the car anymore just due to
Uh,
changes.
okay.
um but the 89 computer has the kind where it'll pull, like you floor it and you hear "Vroom," and then you hear "Vroom" as it lays over, as it pulls 16 degrees of timing out, and then it starts cutting cylinders,
Wow.
and then it starts popping and banging, and then that makes a ton of boost.
Yeah.
So, but
Okay.
yeah, but unfortunately, the there's people are busy.
Yeah.
It happens, and they don't, there's some time that could be spent figuring out why, because I think he tried to get it to work in this code, but there was something that everybody was missing, where it didn't do what we expected it to do. So
So,
yep.
so I think one more thing. I got a multi-play flash module,
Hmm.
uh, and so I don't know how much you probably know about those, obviously.
Yeah. I have one.
Yeah.
I went to put it in my smec, and I had a smec that had something messed up on it, so it wouldn't flash.
Okay.
But I have one. So you got off of Wayne,
Yeah. Yeah.
all
Uh,
right, with the little push button switch,
yeah. The rotary switch to change through the
or who did it come from?
Wayne. Well, I was talking to Miles Snow,
Okay,
and
yep,
he directed me to the multiplay, and
right.
then I was asking Miles questions about it, and he was like, I can't really answer those. Ask Wayne about it, and because he knows more apparently about the actual specifics of them.
Oh,
Um,
like the installation procedure.
yeah, stuff like that, and like what it can do, I guess.
Well,
Uh,
you can have four. Is it a four?
yeah, it's four.
You can put four different tunes on it
Yeah.
at the
Oh,
same time, and then just switch through them with the switch. um
yeah.
I believe because you bought the one specific for the spec,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It You would pull that green latch adapter off,
The green
and
latch adapter.
the thing that holds the chip down,
Oh yeah.
that green board, you
Uh,
know, you would pull that off, and then that flash adapter would go in place of that. But I think you got to solder a couple more pins in and stuff. I know Wayne has some instructions
yeah.
on.
I actually have Miles putting a 32 pin socket in a computer that I got off of Cindy.
Oh, okay, okay.
Um, because my current computer has a bad coil driver, so if you drive it for too long, it blows your coil up. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, it's not
Hmm.
fun. And I drove it like 3.5 hours home from picking it up from Sean
Oh, geez.
every 45 minutes. And so I ended up having to put the stock computer in it and run really rich all the way home. Yeah. When I got that computer from Cindy, it wasn't working with my car.
Hmm.
It would like weak prime.
Okay.
It wouldn't sound like the fuel pump would like fully prime and do it short and
Hmm.
you know, sound. And then it would just concur start. Um So I
Gotcha.
yeah, it was weird though because I sent it to Miles and uh it worked fine in his car.
Oh, weird.
Yeah. I must apparently I must have done something wrong. Maybe I put the chip in backwards, but I don't think so.
It won't do anything if you put the chip in backwards,
Oh, well, that's
or it'll
yeah.
blow the chip up, one or the other.
Yeah.
Um, the other thing, that 60-way connector, those pins can loosen up.
The 60-way connector, like
The big bolt-on connector.
the actual ECU plug.
Yeah, ECU plug.
Yeah.
Um, but usually, like, there's that shell on the back of it that you can pull off. I remember being in a parking lot at one of the SDAC events, and we would, you know,
Mhm.
have a car running and take each individual wire and jiggle it until it would do bad things, and then take that connector apart and pull each individual pin out and like kind of roll it tighter. So I know Miles bought a ton of pins, so if you needed to, you could rebuild that whole connector.
Okay. And you mean on the car side or on the computer side?
Car side, it's the car side where it does it. It's not on the,
Oh,
because
okay, of
the
course.
computer side is just pins. I mean, you just got to make sure they're clean. But
Mm,
and spray a little deoxit. There's a deoxit D5. It's a really good spray for cleaning old computer
yeah.
car connectors and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
um it's like miracle in a can.
Uh,
So yeah, deoxit D5.
yeah.
You can pick it up on Amazon.
Okay. Yeah, I'll probably do that.
Yep, that stuff's pretty good. Spray it in the connector and insert it, a couple times, and it's usually fairly good. The other, and Miles did order. He found out a part number for those pins, and you can get them.
Okay. Good.
Um,
I don't think it's that. Just
okay,
because it works on my computer that blows coils, it works just fine.
okay, gotcha.
But I mean, it could be. I do have a
Yeah.
couple of like I have one bare wire on that. Not bare, just one spot that like got pinched in the bolt,
Oh,
something like that. But
gotcha.
I thought maybe that could be it, but I had it, not touching anything, and it's
Not touching, tape it up.
yeah, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's about it, I think.
All right, cool.
Um, Thank you for taking time to teach this to me.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, this is really hopefully gonna help me figure this stuff out a bit better.
Yeah, it's not hard, and it's really, I mean, I went down through everything. You're
Yeah.
really going to just be doing the 3 timing tables,
Hmm.
uh, and the 4 fuel tables mostly. The pumping efficiency being the biggest, fuel baseline for map, down in vacuum for idle,
Hmm.
and fuel full throttle and fuel part throttle, um, based on if you're hammered or not, and yeah, but pumping efficiency being the biggest one.
Okay. Do you think it'd be possible if you could make me like a short list of just the titles of those ones so I can
Yeah,
remember? All right.
sure.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, you're welcome.
All right.
All
Uh,
righty.
Guess I'll probably be texting you at some point if I have
Yeah,
questions.
just hit me up.
All right. Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
You're welcome. Have a good one.
You too.
All
Bye.
right. See ya. Bye.